Once again, it's a marvelous Monday morning here on Morning Mocha, and we're delighted. I'm so delighted you've joined us again today. How y'all feel this morning? How many of you got a hangover from that Chiefs game yesterday? A terrible loss, terrible loss. But don't panic, y'all. Hopefully they'll right the ship. I talked last week about lessons from a loss, and I don't know if they learned anything from that lesson that lost last week. We're going to have to pray for our defense because they're kind of light in the pants. They need a little help there. They need to get this thing going. But y'all don't let it stress you out. I concluded I'm not going to let these Chiefs stress me out. I'm going to hope for the best. And maybe they'll get this thing turned around. Deacon Melvin Porter Jr., good morning to you. So y'all lift up your head. You got something to celebrate. You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. Letitia, I'm not going to fool with you this morning. I'm not going to fool with you at all. You Chiefs hater. You Chiefs hater. You're just a hater. But that's what people do. They want to hate on you and act like we've got such a terrible situation. Nah. Cheryl Brown, good morning to you. I'm not even going to talk that much about the Chiefs this morning. That's over and done. It's water under the bridge. That's old news now. Lita McQuarrie, good morning to you. Good morning to you. God bless each and every one of you. We've come off a wonderful, powerful weekend on this weekend. Let me say to you all, those of you that have already made a contribution to our cancer awareness, ovarian cancer awareness initiative. God bless you. You still have time to donate if you haven't done so yet. Right now, we're just a little under $1,200 that we've raised over the weekend, which I praise God for. And there's still yet monies that need to be counted and accounted for. And again, those of you that are still desiring to make a contribution, you can go to Canaan's website and click the giving link, and there's a drop down it says Tia Okra, all in one word, Tia Okra. There's a drop down there where you can give. Let me throw that up on the screen real quickly. Thank you, Rochelle, for providing that for us. Those of you that want to know how to access the website, you can do so. You can do so through that particular link. Gail Cowley, good morning to you. And again, I'm just very humbled and grateful that you all opened up your hearts of compassion and you deemed this a worthy initiative to contribute to the continued research with regards to ovarian cancer. We know that there are other cancers that research is being done on, and we deem those just as important. But naturally, I wanted to do something that would honor my daughter and our daughter, I should say. And you guys were so wonderful with responding, and I greatly appreciate it. Speaking of Cancer Awareness Month, on next month, October is the month of breast cancer awareness. And First Lady is asking that on the second Sunday of October that everyone would wear pink in observance of breast cancer awareness. Again, we hope that you would be just as participating on that particular Sunday as you were on yesterday. We have breast cancer survivors in our congregation. We thank God for them and the blessings that God has bestowed upon them in terms of healing them and allowing them to go into remission and even full recovery and healing. Thank God. And then there are other forms of cancer that we are yet praying and seeking God's face that He would bring about a healing, a cure, whatever way God chooses to do so. Yeah, so God bless you. God bless you again. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Richard and Rebecca Lane, good morning to you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Deacon Randy Spearman, Good morning. Good morning. Maybe Randy can explain to me what's happening with those Chiefs. But I will say this. Let me say this. I said I wasn't going to talk much about the Chiefs today, but I will say this. They played poorly, yes, and Patrick Mahomes did some things that he wasn't normally accustomed to doing. That's throwing interceptions. One of them was not his fault. The receiver should have caught the ball, plain and simple. But the one that was later in the game where he just overthrew Travis Kelce, a bad throw. There was a couple of problems toward the end of the game that I saw, and I'm not, crying over spilt milk. That's not what I'm doing, but I'm just calling it like I see it. On the 4th and 9 play at the end of the game, where the Chargers were moving the ball and they needed to get a first down in order to go down and score again. The Chiefs were called for a phantom pass interference. Phantom pass interference. People are still trying to figure out where that pass interference came from. And if you notice something, they did not replay that play because they didn't want to expose the referees. They didn't want to expose their mistake, plain and simple. Okay. But even that being said, if that play on that 4th and 9, if they called that a pass interference, tell me what was going on. What do you call it on the Hail Mary pass at the end of the game that Mahomes threw, where Travis Kelce was mugged? Mm-hmm. He was mugged, and Tyreek Hill was wrestled to the ground before the ball even got there. Okay. I know some of you may not understand all of this football terminology, but those of you that do understand the football terminology, you understand exactly where I'm coming from. And sometimes referees play too much of a part of the game for my liking. But anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up. So, Randy, maybe you can call me later and explain all of that to me, since you work with that organization. All right. Just a little fun. I'm going to say this again. Letitia, we're not fooling with you this morning. We don't even care about your little 1 and 2 that you done posted up there. We do not care. Now, when we get to the end of the season, let's look at what's going on and how things are setting then. It's not always how you start, but how you end. I have shared that lesson with you all on so many occasions because, listen, if it was about how we started off, all of us would have been doomed by now. We thank God for his grace, wherein he gives us another chance. You know what, Shauna Livingston, y'all, and you Chiefs haters, I'm going to wind up blocking y'all. I'm just going to block y'all off the chat room. I ain't trying to hear nothing about no Broncos Nation. Yes, they're 3-0, but they ain't played nobody. They even played high school teams, and they bragging about 3-0. Come on, y'all. Shauna, please. Please, 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 please. See, I ain't got time to be fooling with you all because y'all trying to get me off of what I'm trying to focus on this morning. But again, as I was stating a few minutes ago, that is not how you start, but how you finish that's most important. And you ought to thank God for that. You really ought to thank God for the fact that it's not how you start off, because all of us had some terrible starts in life. But as I've been teaching for the past few Sundays, it's all about the grace of God, where God extends his grace to us and gives us another chance. I'm so delighted. I'm so glad that God is not like people and man who are just haters. If y'all would notice something, the only time I really talk about another team is when my team is being attacked. When you're good, when you're really good and you know you're good, you don't have to talk about another team. It's not even relevant. I only come to the defense of my team. Some of you can learn something from that right there within itself. You don't have to defend yourself when you know everything is well with you. Some people are just going to be haters. They're going to try to put you down. They're going to try to find fault in you. They got to elevate themselves to make you look bad, or try to make you look bad to elevate themselves. But it's okay. One of these days, they'll catch on and they'll get used to being on top, and they'll get used to success. When you are successful, you really don't have to brag about it. You just let your work speak for itself. And so rather than me constantly throwing other names into the arena, all I want to talk about is our team. Focus on our team, because when you use all that energy to focus on another team or somebody else, you're taking viable, valid, significant energy away from yourself, that you're wasting on somebody else, and you could be using all that energy to further advance your particular interest, if you will. Let me just put it like that. And so I'm done with talking to the rest of you all that are our Chiefs haters, and all I have to say is, because I'm not a fair weathered fan, I'm still going to say go Chiefs, and even now go Royals. And the Royals haven't done much this year at all. Their season is about over, but I still love my Royals, love my Chiefs, don't care what anybody else is doing. How about that? Now that ought to put a bow on that discussion, and I am done with it. All right, let's get to the situation at hand. Let's get to the matter at hand, if you will. I'm sorry, I turned that music back on. Let's get to the matter at hand. We want to talk about being in uh, the right fit of relationships. I started talking about relationships on last week, and I thought I'd go ahead and continue this. Let me say this while I have your attention. I want everybody to pay close attention, because I'm about to make a very, 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 very important announcement. First of all, this week will be a short week. Wednesday will be my last day on this week. I have some other conflict in schedule. I won't be able to be with you on Thursday and Friday. Okay, so be sure to tune in tomorrow and Wednesday as well, because we're going to have a short week this week. Also, pay very close attention. Uh, Beginning the 1st of October, we'll be entering into the 1st of October on Friday. But beginning the 1st of October, I'm going to change the schedule a little bit. I'll no longer be coming on Monday mornings, okay? I've listened to the voice of reason, and her name is Lady Ann, and she says, hey, you need some rest. You need a day where you're just not engaged in doing anything. And some of you all say, well, you're off Saturday and Sunday. No, I'm not, because Saturdays I'm in preparation for Sunday, and then Sunday I'm preaching, and then Sunday night I'm preparing, making sure that I got my thoughts together in terms of Monday morning and morning mocha. And I have very little downtime, because I'm also taking a class that I'm trying to finish up for coaching certification, which I've already shared that with you. And I finally had to listen to the voice of reason. And if I'm not going to listen to her, then, what are we in this thing together? It's Team Cobbins with Lady Ann and myself. And I can be a little bit slow at times with regards to yielding. I'm not trying to be stubborn, but I'll always try to do what's in the best interest. And she can notice some things in me that at times I probably don't notice myself. She's throwing up there on the screen right there. Let me throw that up there. She just commented rest. She wants her husband to be well rested. And since we're in this thing together, I owe her that much. So thank you, Sister Tisha. Self-care is what we need. I need self-care. So I'm going to just be coming on Tuesdays through Friday, moving forward after this week. This will be my last Monday. My last Monday, not my last day, y'all. Make sure y'all get it straight. This will be the last Monday I will be coming on. It's going to be moving forward, starting next week, Tuesday through Friday. And yes, you're right, Deacon Will. Technically, I still have to prepare on Monday for Tuesday's morning mocha. So again, we're just trying to find some space in there for me to get a break every now and then, because every now and then I need to download, and decompress and all of that. Yeah, so that's where we're going. That's where we're moving. Let's get into this whole thing about the right fit of relationship. Now, for me, being in certain relationships has to make sense. It just has to make sense. In other words, there needs to be some sensible or reasonable rhyme or reason for people to enter into a relationship and for them to retain the desire to maintain the relationship. It just has to make sense. God bless you, Sister Rochelle, for being a blessing and sowing that seed. Appreciate you so much. It's just got to make sense, because if it doesn't make sense, then otherwise you're really wasting your time. Because of the role that relationships play in the life of an individual, it is so important that you be very selective in terms of the people with whom you enter into relationship. Okay, it's so important. I talked about it on last week, a couple of days last week, with regards to how we get into relationships and we become so invested in our relationships. And it's okay and it makes sense, because relationships are just that important. Now, again, I know a lot of us, when we hear or we read the passage of scripture in Genesis where God created for Adam a helpmeet, we always refer that or reference that to marriage, and it is very applicable to marriage. But I believe that whole principle of having a helpmeet, someone to come alongside of you, it even is applicable to just having relationships in general. Families become helpmeets to one another. Friends can become helpmeets to one another. In other words, we can serve a very, very valuable purpose with regards to helping to bring balance to one another, helping to bring completeness to one another. You don't have to be married for that to happen. You just have to be in a relationship. And that is a very, very important thing, to have someone in whom you can be in relationship with, to the degree that they help to somewhat complete you, help to fulfill you, help to bring balance in your life. Now, here's the thing about entering into relationships. It can be very, very tricky. How so? Because number one, people can be easily drawn in by a person's personality. Some people just have, Tiffany Burns, God bless you. Thank you so much. We love you too. Thank you for sowing into the bishop's life. God bless. People are drawn in by people's personality. People that have those bubbly personalities, they may appear to be very outgoing, and you might quickly assume that this person is likely to be easy to get along with. And you may conclude that the two of you should mesh very well together. It's easy to assume that, because we are drawn to things that are attractive to us. We are drawn naturally to things that are appealing to us. And sometimes we get so caught up in the external trappings that we fail to make a deep internal investigation into that person. Because sometimes a person's personality, their true personality, doesn't always totally show up in that external presentation. You have to be around them a little while. You have to really, really spend some time with them and take the time to observe them, observe their movement, observe their body language, observe their first facial expressions, observe their tone of voice, how they communicate. And when you take all of these things, all of these elements, and begin to assess all of those different elements, only then can you come to a reasonable or educated conclusion about who this person is and how this person will fit, or whether or not they will fit into the framework of your life. Now, being hopeful that a relationship is right doesn't mean it will be right for you. Tisha Hillman, God bless you. Thank you so much for being a blessing and sowing into your bishop's life. God bless you. The reality is, some proposed relationships are just not good fits. They are not the right fit. Sometimes, as much as you would love for a relationship to fit, or you to be able to enter into a fitting relationship with a specific person, the reality is when you get beneath all of that surface stuff, you have to come to the conclusion that this just does not fit. It does not work for you. Here's a good example, and I know you've heard this before. Oil and water are both forms of liquid, but they don't mix very well. Think about that. See, the problem with trying to mix the two is once they are mixed, then their usefulness becomes compromised. Their potential is greatly diminished. It just doesn't make sense to try to blend these two elements that have absolutely no business being thrown together just because someone thinks it would be a good idea. Yet, this kind of thing happens in relationships all the time. There are people who deem themselves to be matchmakers. And I'm not just talking about from a romantic relationship sense, but I'm just talking about matching up people, period. They concluded, well, I think you would like this person. I think you all will get together and work together just fine. And they go about trying to throw two people together only to figure out or find out that it's just like trying to mix oil and water. Oil has its purpose. Water has its purpose. And when they are both working in their purpose, they work to the level of their maximum potential. But once they get together, that maximum potential is diminished. This happens all the time with relationships. You get two people who have great potential, who are really to one another are like oil and water. You know, but when you try to put them together, it doesn't work. It's like trying to put water in the tank with the gas just so you can say, I have a full tank. No, you're going to have a messed up tank. It's just like putting oil or gas in a swimming pool. You just contaminated the pool. The pool was there. The water was glistening. It was ready to serve its purpose. And then someone goes and throws oil or gas in the pool. That's disastrous. That's what happens when you try to mesh two people together in a relationship that just does not fit. There's an old saying that I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with, which says, if it doesn't fit, don't force it. Don't fit, don't force it. You have to at times take that approach when it comes to relationships. Be very careful, be very cautious not to allow yourself just to get caught up with the external trappings. Because if you allow yourself to get caught up with the external trappings, you're going to fall into a trap that is going to be very discomforting. Yes, it is. Here's what you got to understand about relationships. There are a lot of moving parts that must be considered when potentially forming relationships. Here are some of the moving parts. There is, number one, the connection. At what point do you connect with that other person? Where do your lives intersect with one another? Okay. Now, of course, there are times that you come across certain people and you can immediately identify points of connection. But that doesn't mean that you are to just jump in with 2 feet and go in headlong and wind up deep into that relationship just because you found a connecting point or a point where the two lives intersect. There is yet more work to be done. There is the issue of commonality. What do you really have in common? And sometimes when people have certain things in common, that still doesn't mean that they can connect. Case in point, you may not consider this. You might have common or mutual friends. But just because both of you are friends with one person doesn't mean, and I shared this last week, doesn't mean that you can connect with each other. You have a common friend. You may even have a common interest. But that doesn't mean that there will be a connection made there. After considering the connection, the commonality, then you've got to discover whether or not there is a real chemistry there. Can there be a blending of personalities? And sometimes personalities clash because they're too much alike. Like things can repel at times. For instance, take 2 magnets and turn those magnets toward one another, where the force of the magnet that is supposed to draw in, once it meets up with the force of the other magnet, the 2 magnets actually will repel. They'll push away from each other. There's no chemistry there. There's no real blending of the personalities. Think about this. 2 overbearing personalities could wind up having a very difficult time getting along with one another. Why? Because they're headstrong, heartstrong, stubborn, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes people don't get along with each other because they are just like one another. And if it were possible, neither individual would be able to stand themselves, because when they see themselves in somebody else, they don't like what they see. Why? Because sometimes it's a matter of they can dish themselves out, but they couldn't take themselves. Does that make sense? Sounds kind of weird, but it is actually the truth. So you got the connection, you got the commonality, you got the chemistry thing, but then there's a matter of compatibility. Are the personalities compatible? Now, it might sound like I'm saying the same thing with all of these different or specific elements, but really, when you look at it in depth, I'm really not saying the same thing. They all function in slightly different ways, but they are very much needed to have a good, healthy relationship. Are the personalities compatible? What do I mean by that? Do they bring balance to one another? That's what compatibility is all about. Do they bring that element of completeness to one another? Can they work well with one another, even though they may be very, very, very different in nature? It's not about the differences. It's about the compatibility. Can we work together? Can we work well together? Can we get along while we're working well together? Can we produce by working together? Will both parties or all parties involved benefit from this union wherein now you're working together? So you got the connection. I hope y'all writing these down. The commonality, the chemistry, the compatibility. Then there's the camaraderie. Camaraderie, what's that about, Pastor? Can there be a shared enthusiasm about the relationship? Is there authentic potential for lasting relationship? Now, you don't want to be in a relationship with someone that you can't be excited about being in that relationship. When you're in a relationship with someone and they come into your presence and your response, your internal response is, oh, brother, then something's wrong with that relationship. But if you can say with authenticity, with sincerity, when that person enters your presence, if you can say, hey, what's up? And really mean it. You're so sincere. And the response is mutual. You're excited about being in one another's presence. You're excited about doing things together. You look to enjoy life together. You look for those times where you can sit down and have a meal together and talk and laugh and just have fun and just enjoy one another's presence. That's what camaraderie is really all about. Now, again, just so I can give you a clear example of some of the differences between of these other elements that I just mentioned. Sometimes you can have a commonality by working together, have a chemistry wherein you all can work very well together. You are compatible in that you bring balance to the table in terms of your working together. But all of that is just a working relationship. There's no real camaraderie there. That fits more so with a business working relationship. But when we're done with the end of that, at the end of that work day, you go your way, I go my way. And we don't meet up again until it's time to do business again. Camaraderie is totally different because it's about fellowship. It's all about fellowship. And you know, as I'm going through this, as I'm rolling out these things, you ought to be thinking to yourself, yeah, you know, that makes sense. That's the kind of relationship that I want to commit myself to, which brings me to the next thing, which is commitment. Can the two of you truly commit to the relationship? Now, committing to the relationship goes beyond just stating that you're committed or feeling committed when everything is going well. True commitment to a relationship includes remaining in place, remaining committed, remaining loyal and faithful to the relationship through the ups, through the downs, through the goods, through the bad. That's what commitment is all about. You see all those moving parts, the connection, the commonality, the chemistry. the compatibility, the camaraderie, and the commitment. All of these moving parts of relationship. And a lot of times we take these things for granted. Now, giving consideration to all of the moving parts of relationship, one would definitely have to conclude that in terms of relationship, it's more than just a feeling. Way more than just a feeling. You know you have something in a relationship when you're not really feeling the relationship at the time or feeling all that good to the relationship rather, but yet you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to hang in here. We're going to work this thing out because we've been in this thing too long just to drop it and let it go. How many of you have ever had a disagreement? I mean, a major disagreement with a lifelong friend. I'm talking about someone that you went to preschool together with. And here it is, you're in your 50s now, and you're still connected to one another. You've been there for each other all of your lives, and you had this wonderful relationship and even may label one another as best friends. But you have this major disagreement, and it seems as though the disagreement may be threatening to totally undermine or destroy the relationship. It seems just that serious. But then you stop and you think about how you are committed to the relationship. Yeah, you may have had a moment where you got in your feelings, but you come to the realization that maybe I'm being a little bit too sensitive, and maybe I need to set my feelings aside, my emotions aside, and analyze this situation thoroughly. And then I can rationally come to the conclusion that there's too much at stake to just throw away here. And so by reason of my commitment to the relationship, I'm willing to dig deeper, to work harder, and even now to forgive when it is appropriate. It's more than just a feeling. Listen, relationships can be very complicated when they are established on emotions or just feelings. I tell you all the time, feelings can fool you. Feelings can cause you to fall into something that just does not fit. Yes, they can. Your feelings can cause you to land in a state of regret, remorsefulness, which could ultimately lead to depression, because you come to the realization that you made a major decision without taking the time to actually think it through, simply because you got caught up in the external trappings. And when you get that revelation that this just doesn't fit, it can be devastating. Let me help you with something, especially those of you that deem yourselves to be very spiritual people, you who are born again. We know that the Bible tells us that we shouldn't think more highly of ourselves than we ought to think. We got to learn how to deny ourselves, but we got to keep everything in proper perspective and within context of the passage that we're reading. For some reason or another, some Christians have deemed it vanity for them to consider their own well-being. But let me set the record straight. It is perfectly fine for you to consider yourself, your personal well-being, when entering into or considering the maintenance of a relationship. Now, let me put a little addendum there. Please understand that it's a little different when it comes to the marriage relationship. The rules are slightly different when it comes to the marriage relationship, because the marriage relationship is actually a covenant. That's the reason why you got to sign papers. It's a contract between two people. And that's the reason why, as the old folk used to say, you better look before you leap. You know, he might look fine, but not be worth a dime. Think about it. Same could hold true for the woman. She might be fine, but she might not be worth a dime. That's kind of cold, ain't it? No, it's a reality. It is a reality. Here's what I urge you to do when considering entering into a relationship. Look for potential value in the proposed relationship. Now, while you're looking for potential value, that means not only what's going to come your way, but also what you can give in terms of value to the relationship. Identify the potential pitfalls in a relationship. And in order to identify potential pitfalls, you've got to really examine that person's personality. Don't ignore some of the warning signs in the personality. If the person seems to be real moody and you never know what you're going to get at any given time, that might be a warning sign. And I may talk about the marriage relationship on tomorrow, but you got to consider before you jump into marriage with somebody, everybody can put on a show and make an impression part-time. A lot of relationships are beautiful until the two people move in together and they're with each other full time. That's when you really get to know a person's quirkiness. Those hidden mannerisms that weren't exposed during the time of dating, or that may have been a little bit revealed, but you just chose to ignore the signs. Person's moody, can be snappy, short-tempered, impatient. All of these elements and characteristics during the dating period, they kind of peep out every now and then. You just got to be willing to say, oh, I saw you. I saw that. Pay attention to it. You don't have to tell the individual immediately, but what you have to do at least is to file them away in your file cabinet of significance or importance, and then at some point sit down and analyze those things. If that person is like this prior to you being together full time, what's going to happen once you're together all the time? So again, you want to avoid any potential pitfalls in a relationship. Another thing I suggest you do is only invest in relationships that are mutually beneficial. If you know right from the start that you're the only one giving in the relationship, back up. That's not a good fit. And let me help you with something, women in particular. Watch this now. Just because he puts a ring on your finger And the ring might be the most beautiful, expensive thing in the world. It doesn't mean that he's a good man. It simply means that he knows what to do to ultimately get what he wants. And what he wants may be to have you as a wife. He may want that, but what comes along with that? How does he treat you once he feels like he's got it all sewn up? You know, some of you, I know there have been people, maybe not you all, but there have been people that thought they were marrying a prince or a princess, got into the marriage and found out that they had married the devil. It was all give on their part. That one that's being victimized, they're giving. And the other person is taking. And sometimes it can be like this. Before wedding bells, the man or the person can give. But then once the vows are exchanged, the giving cuts off. The consideration cuts off. The attitude toward the relationship shifts or changes. I'm going to say this. I don't want to get too deep in case I decide to talk about marriage relationship at times. But sometimes when people get married, they think that their spouse becomes their property. Men are very bad about that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, men are very bad about that, thinking that their wives have just become their property. And that's not maintaining a relationship that's mutually beneficial, because it lacks mutual respect for one another. I would suggest to you that you avoid stressful relationships at all costs. Some people are just high maintenance. That's both men and women. High maintenance. And you get into a relationship with someone that is high maintenance, you're going to wish you never had. They're going to stress you out to the degree that there are going to be some days you're going to want to pull your hair out, if you have any. That's the truth. Praise God. Michelle Love, I'll agree with you there. It says in the word to love your neighbor as yourself. We must love ourselves at the same time as loving someone else. We sometimes forget about ourselves. That is so true. And we do it in the name of spirituality. I'm a Christian. I'm denying myself. No, you might be abusing yourself. You got to keep everything within proper perspective and within context of the message contained in that passage of scripture. It's okay to take care of yourself. Let me have you to think about this. The Bible says that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. So really, they don't belong to us. They really belong to God. So when we allow certain things to occur to us, can't we consider that being an act of abusing ourselves or abusing the temple that belongs to God? Because you can't simply detach your emotions, your mental, emotional, and spiritual needs. You just can't simply totally detach them from this physical body. They are merged together and they are inseparable. So the things that you do should be for the sake of your well-being, so long as you're not harming someone else. And when you simply at times have to make an assessment of what's going on in your life or your relationship and then make some decisions and adjustments accordingly, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'll reiterate this. It can be a little bit more complex when it comes to the marital relationship. Now, that being said, I suggest this to you. If a relationship constantly pulls you down rather than build you up, it is not a right fit. And it's time to bail. Now, again, hear me. Those of you that are in struggling marital relationships, I don't want you to interpret that by saying, Bishop just said I need to bail on this. No, that's not what I told you. That's not what I said. I'm talking about relationships outside of marriage. Now, yes, there may be times where you feel as though the marriage is unbearable. But there are some mitigating circumstances that surround that type of situation. It's not something that you can just up and walk away from. And one of the reasons why is because of the fact that you have to deal with that covenant or that contract that was established when you said I do. Otherwise, if it's just a friendship, sometimes it's time to bail. If it's a family situation, such as siblings, cousins, in-laws or whatever, watch this. Sometimes what you need to do is step back and remove yourself from those situations wherein you're not accessible to other people to continuously be hurt. Family is going to always be family. But sometimes you have to kind of scale back on going around certain family members, especially if they leave you feeling some kind of way every time you go into their presence or have any kind of exchange with them. There are some family members who at times have done and said some horrible things to me. But what I do in response to that, I don't like to do a whole lot of fighting. You all found out months ago, I think I shared with you all that most of the time I try to avoid confrontation, which is not always the right thing to do. There's a way to engage in healthy and productive confrontation, but I don't like all the fussing and fighting stuff. I want my life to be peaceable. I want my relationships with people to be peaceable. And because of certain connections, family connections, biological connections, whatever, I understand that I can't just declare, well, they're no longer my family. Well, they're still my family, but despite the fact that they may be still my family, I just have to step back and say I'm no longer going to subject myself to this uncomfortable feeling that I experience every time I'm in that person's presence. Because sometimes even family members have no desire to mend relationships. And the fit is really broken. It's broken because of the stubbornness, the selfishness, or whatever element there may be that would create that brokenness. It's not something that any of us, I don't think, would enjoy or look forward to. But sometimes it occurs, it happens, And the best thing you can do is remove yourself from that situation. And I've said on so many occasions over the years, sometimes you just have to love people from a distance. Yeah, Tisha, thank you for agreeing. I don't like drama. I just don't like drama. I do not, I absolutely do not like drama. I will sit around, laugh, and have fun for hours. But when if the drama starts, it's time for me to go. Thank you, Tiffany. Tiffany, she says, I love them and pray for them, but I have to protect my peace. Oh, well said. Well said. So I love them from a distance. Well said. Well said. First lady said, no drama. Yes, she know. That's one of our policies around here. We don't like that. We don't like that drama stuff. Joyce Lee said, I guess a long distance. Love them from a long distance. All right. We still have to love them, even from a long distance. So I hope you all have been blessed and benefited from this session this morning. I hope this is giving you a different perspective on make sure you have the right fit. And remember, if it don't fit, don't force it. You're more valuable than that. I truly believe that it was the intent of God. It's yet the intent of God that we live stress-free lives. And I believe that some of that living stress-free life begins with being in relationships that fit. Be very selective. Be very open. Be very honest. Use wisdom when contemplating entering into a relationship. It'll only serve in your best interest. That's all for today. Thank you so much again for joining us. Before I sign off today, I'm going to keep pushing my books. I would have thought by now that more of my audience would have picked up my books by now. Spiritual Storm Chasers, Between a Rock and a Heavenly Place, and my latest book, Between Two Opinions. I'm looking for more of you all to help a brother out, to get the word out, to invite others to pick up the book. Get the book, read the book. They're not long reads. They're not difficult reads, but they are reads that will bless you nonetheless. There are some of you who have already received your copy of my newest book. Let me take the time to say thank you so much for being a blessing to the bishop. I appreciate it. Pastor Roman D, he says, I'm getting it today. I'm getting it today. I'm going to bust my son out right here. Pastor Roman D, you owe me some money to get my suit clean because you was crying on my shoulder yesterday. And that was my good suit. I told First Lady that I was going to call you and tell you, I hope you didn't slobber while you was crying. No, I was just kidding. Y'all, we have fun like that. I love you, man. Love you. God bless you, man. And again, we are celebrating. We are celebrating with Live Church in their first year anniversary, and Pastor Roman and Lady E in their first year anniversary coming up this Sunday. God bless you. Grace and peace and favor be upon you. He said, why you put my business out of the street? It ain't in the street. It's just on live stream. Unless somebody outside with it. No, I'm just kidding. No, what a blessing yesterday. A blessed occasion on yesterday. And again, we're celebrating you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you laughing until your face hurts. Praise God. All right. God bless all of y'all. Love you. Look forward to being with you tomorrow. Don't forget, some of you came on late. Don't forget, our schedule is going to be changing. This week is going to be a short week because of conflict in schedule. I won't be able to be with you Thursday and Friday. And also, 1st of October, we're changing our schedule. Lady Ann suggested, she said, honey, you need some rest. You need a rest day where you're not doing anything like that. And so she suggested that I start taking Mondays off. I'm listening to my lady, my girl, my partner, all that, my boo. I'm listening to her. I'm taking her advice, and I'm moving forward in October. And from then on, we'll only be doing Tuesday through Friday. Tuesday through Friday. And so we hope that you all anticipate being with us moving forward from Tuesday to Friday. All right. God bless you. And as I often say, my prayer is that you all have a blessed, wonderful, and prosperous rest of your day. Love you. God bless.